Okay, good morning. Nice to see you all. My name is Mary Curby. I'm an academic advisor of graduate students, mostly online, but a few on campus as well at the School of International Service. And it's my pleasure to welcome you here to the Thriving Spotlights Champions of Student Success. And I think it's wonderful timing to kind of have the opportunity for this panel of staff and faculty to share their personal stories of initiatives that they've started or their own stories of working with students, building those relationships that lead to that growth, resilience, and achievement that makes our work so meaningful. We welcome you whether you're here in person or joining us on Zoom. We have someone monitoring the chat so that you can participate as well. And we'll have a chance for questions later on in the session. So I'm honored to be joined by my colleagues here. I'm going to briefly say their names, and then we're going to each go down the line and have them share their particular spotlights. So I'm joined by Saagar Gupta, David Fletcher, Pallavi Kumar, Pallavi, Hannah Jardine, and Amelia Graber-Lipperman. Saagar, let's begin with you.
Thank you so much, Mary. Can everybody in the back still hear me okay? Thumbs up? All right, thank you. So hey everybody, my name is Saagar Gupta. I work in the Center for Leadership and Community Engagement, and I oversee our community-based learning program. So essentially, these are programs that connect the student's academic journey to work with local nonprofits. And students are able to get credit, recognition, as well as even some financial support and mentorship in order to do projects that create a difference within the DMV community and connect their academic experience and their passions and interests to work that they can do within nonprofits. So we have a few different outcomes that we have in terms of what a beneficial community-based learning experience looks like. Those include deep and memorable ties to their learning objectives, exposure to diverse communities, career explorations and networking, and accessible or multimodal reinforcement of what they're learning in the classroom. In terms of one of our programs, you'll see one over here, the Community Service Learning Program, or CSLP for short, with the tagline Serve, Earn, and Learn. And when we look at the cohort, which usually ranges anywhere from 40 to this spring we had 63 students, we find that the results from students in terms of when we're asking them on a Likert 1 to 5 scale, what they think of some of the outcomes that they're getting, they're really positive. In terms of career exploration and networking, 80% with 58% of them strongly agreeing that they had an expanded network in their field of interest through the program. In terms of serving a community that they cared about, 92% of them with 80% strongly agreeing that they interacted with a community that they cared about. And another 83% with 69% of that being strongly felt more connected to the DMV after the community service learning experience. This is a program where students can get an add-on credit and essentially tie one of the classes that they're taking to a work with a local nonprofit for 40 hours of field learning over the semester. So I have some testimonials from that too, just a few one-hitters before I go into a more in-depth story. One student was doing English tutoring to connect it to one of their writing courses, and they're tutoring with a local middle school student. And they expressed this experience of how after they met and did the tutoring, the next week that student came back and said that they got the first A they ever received in that English class. So that was something that was personally fulfilling to that student. I have another testimonial where a student said, as a student, it's easy to fall into a routine of class and online homework with minimal human interaction. The CSLP experience allowed me to build my own self-confidence and actually work on my interpersonal communication skills. We also had students who learned more about their topical areas, learning around things like US immigration policies and really realizing that their Spanish was better than they originally anticipated. DC is one of the most unique places to be able to have this experience. When we look at nonprofits in DC, we really have a competitive advantage. With over 15,000 nonprofits in just DC alone, when we take a look at the employment rates, over 25%, which is almost double any other state, of the DC workforce is actually employed by nonprofits. And when we looked at vacancies between nonprofits, which is actually around 75%, versus the private sector at 33%, we see that there's a lot of entry-level job opportunities for students. In our CSLP cohort last spring, 30% of our seniors ended up getting full-time jobs with their nonprofits after doing their experience. So it's something that really not only elevates their learning experience, creates something memorable, allows them to have an impact within the DMV community, and tie it to a community that they care about, but it also can be something that benefits them in terms of, maybe a long-term job opportunity. When I look at some of the student experiences, that's really what makes and breaks the programs that I run. And
so I featured today Brigitte, who some of you may know. She worked here at American University. I picked her out of thousands of students I've worked with over the years. My name is David Fletcher, by the way. I work in career advising for the Office of Career Development at the School of International Service, but enough about me. So Brigitte was amazing for all the right reasons. She stayed here for both degree programs, undergraduate and graduate program. She was involved in our community. She became a worker, a colleague. At the undergraduate level, she was a AU scholar and peer mentor. She was an AU ambassador. She worked for the AU Department of Public Safety, the people who ticket you when you don't pay your parking. But we won't hold that against her. She was an AU resident assistant, so at every level she engaged with her community. As a graduate student, she upped her level of engagement. She became an AU undergraduate advising assistant in that office. She had an SIS practicum, a program engaged with a real-world client. She worked at a nonprofit, the Central American Resource Center, or CARECEN, one of the 15,000 DC nonprofits, and I've heard that there's 57,000 in the greater DMV area. So nonprofits are amazing. That's why so much like her example as somebody to point out. Let me tell you a little bit about career services. I work for one of the 4 career offices on campus. The Washington College of Law has its own career office. The Kogod School of Business has its own career office. The School of International Service has its own office. And the American University Career Center works with the School of Public Affairs, the School of Communication, the College of Arts and Sciences, the School of Education, and first and second year SIS students, so they get double. Other offices we interact with, and I'm so happy to see colleagues here, the International Student and Scholar Services Office, Study Abroad, the Office of Institutional Research, and Academic Advising. We play a very close role with all of these offices. And finally, what do our offices do? Very, very fast here. Career exploration. We work on resumes and cover letters with students. We work on job and internship search. We do not hand out jobs. We work on interview preparation, salary negotiation, networking, graduate school applications, fellowships and scholarships. In fact, the Office of Merit Awards is here as well. They work and do incredible things with students to get them into fellowship programs that can change their lives. With that, I'm going to call it a stop, but hopefully people will ask questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And I know even just with my own students, I had one of my graduate students who lost their job mid-program, and it was a huge retention help for them to continue with the program in working with your career office in a time of significant stress for them. Okay.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. My name is Pallavi Kumar, and I'm a Hurst Senior Professorial Lecturer in the School of Communication, and I'm here to talk about SOC 3, if you could. Okay, so first question, how many of you have heard of SOC 3? Okay, a fair amount. Part of the reason I'm here today is to kind of continue to spread the word about it. Good job, SOC. Yeah, nice. Anyway, so first I'll start with what is it, and then I'll talk a little bit about what do students get out of SOC 3. So SOC 3 was founded in October 2022, so we're going on to our now 5th cohort. It's a class-based experience. You take a class called Storytelling for Changemakers, but students get credit and they get paid, much like Saagar's program as well. They get actually a $1,000 stipend. So as you can imagine, it's pretty competitive. It's open to all School of Communications communication majors, and it's 18 students per semester, and it's funded by a Change Can't Wait gift from Michael Kempner, who's a BOT member, Board of Trustees, as well as an alumni. So what is SOC3? It is basically the chance for students to get experience, get paid, and get credit, but it's also a chance to help improve diversity within the communications industry. As an industry or as a profession, the communications industry has not sort of met the pace of diversity that in terms of what the country looks like. And for me, as someone who was a practicing professional before I came to AU, and also as an alum, I really wanted the chance for students from diverse backgrounds to have the chance to get experience while they're on campus. And so we're going on our 5th cohort. Every cohort has been more than 50% diverse, which is actually an incredible statistic considering the School of Communication is actually 30% diverse. So it's actually so much work. And one of the questions we'll get to in the Q&A is sort of the challenges about trying to reach these students that really, I think, benefit from the opportunity. In terms of how we are sort of structured, in terms of, well, there's a picture over there, that's all of us, one of the cohorts, but we work with real clients and we work with paying clients. And so that's an incredible, I think, also aspect of SOC3, that as much as we are sort of funded by this gift, the gift is, we have to continue to raise money. And so this past year, we worked with the Home Depot and Aldi, who are both our first paying clients. And then we also work with pro bono clients. And so we work with the League of Women Voters, we've worked with DC Central Kitchen, we work with Butter Me Up, which was a Black-owned business, and Shaw. We have, I can't tell you who our clients are, but they're so good for this coming fall. But we're continuing that model of a paying client, a big name client, as well as a pro bono client, which again fits with that ethos of students really wanting to have an impact. And students really enjoy the fact that they get to do both. They get the corporate experience, they get all of that, but they also got so much joy out of doing work for, League of Women Voters or building bridges across the city and that sort of thing. So having that, both of it, I think is a really nice mix. It makes life a little bit challenging for me because I am the teacher, I am the new business development person, I'm trying to do like 100 different things. And so, again, I think part of the challenge in wanting to do these things is that it's so great for the students, but, I think we can all agree it can kind of be a little exhausting, especially, as you're trying to build something different. In terms of other things that we do, you can see up from that slide. So those are the clients we've had so far. We also really try and give students this opportunity to interact with high-level professionals. So we're so lucky that we've had so many, people come through that want to talk, that want to spend time with our students. That's just one example of actually all alums as well, that leading voices. We do a keynote event ceremony every year where we give our graduating seniors SOC3 stoles, which they love. And that is the president of Mars Wrigley Global Ice Cream. And he actually made special M&Ms with SOC3 on them and my face, which was sort of interesting. But anyway, and we also take the students on, I try and do one field trip a semester. And so we did AVOC, which is an amazing storytelling impact firm downtown. We did a great session with them in the fall. And then this past spring, we got to go to the Meta headquarters, as you can see our fun little picture there. So again, all of this stuff is, the students just, they love it. So what do they get out of it? The number one thing that students get out of it is they get to put something on their resume. And they get the idea that they get to get credit for something and get that experience while they're on campus. I know we all talk about the internship culture at AU, which can be a little bit hard, I think, for students. They think freshman year I have to come in, or sorry, first year I have to come in and get an internship right away. No, you don't have to do that. This really gives them the chance to get that experience while being on campus, and I think it's just a really important message. It's also, the confidence factor. I always tell them, like, I was a first generation Pell recipient when I came to AU. I was entering this world of PR that nobody understood in my community, certainly not my parents. And, the fact that they can come in and get, have someone who says, you know what, I don't want you to just be part of the industry, I want you to lead the industry. I tell every cohort that. And I think that's really empowering for them. And they get that confidence, they work with real clients, and then they get the feedback and they realize, wait a second, I can do this. I have a place in this industry, not just to stay, but to lead. And I think that's really what the goal of SOC3 is. If you go to the next slide, you can see in terms of what they get out of it. So over here on the left, this is just one of our client testimonials. This was the Aldi team. And they said it was like you were in the room with us listening to all of the things we were talking about, and you came up with the storytelling deliverables of how we can approach those issues. And for us, that's a huge vote of confidence, obviously. And for students, it's a huge vote of confidence. The Home Depot client, they said after the presentations, they said, you all are honorary Home Depot employees now. So again, if you think about it, you're a junior or senior, this is your first experience, and you have these huge brands in America with these huge leaders who are coming in and telling you that the work you did mattered. It's work that we're going to use. I can't tell you the number of things that we've done in SOC3 that are out in the world right now, which is, again, incredibly empowering. So all of that stuff, I think, for our students is great. And then you can see here this testimonial from Aiko, who was one of the students from the Home Depot group. And again, just an incredible testimonial in terms of her experience, in terms of how she felt, in terms of finding a space where she could feel heard. And her group in particular, that was for Home Depot, again, the diversity aspect is really important for SOC3. And so they were tasked with communicating to millennial homeowners. Okay, it was a pretty broad audience. But this group, it was only a 3-person group. They went the path of talking about building Black generational wealth, and they did this amazing animated series about how the Home Depot can actually help with that because they have so many tutorials and so many DIY things. And again, that storytelling would not have come out if we hadn't had this special group of students getting to tell those stories. And so that's kind of the whole picture of what SOC3 is. I think it is something that it's, for me, having been teaching here for 22 years, it's something that I've always wanted to do because our students, as you can see, practicum, they do all of this work all the time, but we don't necessarily get credit for it. And SOC3 is a vehicle that's front-facing. It not just is great for the students, but it's great for the university to hear that we're doing this type of work and that students are, really providing value to brands across America. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. I love how you built in the vision for students, maybe without having that experience before, to see themselves as leaders and change makers. What a meaningful story.
Right, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Hannah Jardine. I'm a teaching and learning specialist with CTRL, and I'm here today to talk about the CTRL Student Partners Program. So similarly, has anybody here heard of, or who here has heard of the CTRL Student Partners? Okay. A little bit less hands than SOC3. But I'm glad to see some of you have, and also those of you online, glad that you're joining today. So the CTRL Student Partners is a program I started and co-designed in spring 2023, so we are relatively new, with the first group of student partners, Reba, Nate, Allie, and Kamaya, who were students in my Psychology of Education class, so I also teach with the School of Education. They were in my class the prior semester, and I talked to them a lot about my work with CTRL, and they were learning a lot of things that they thought, faculty could really benefit from hearing some of this stuff. I said, I've been really interested in bringing students in to work with me in CTRL. Are you interested in joining? So they bravely committed to working with me to make that dream a reality, and now we've kind of expanded the program and formalized it, and we're in coming on our 4th semester. So the student partners work directly with me and the other CTRL staff. They bring the student voice and perspective to the work that CTRL does with faculty, but also with staff and administrators around teaching and learning development. We meet weekly to discuss topics relevant to the student experience, and those conversations are driven by the students. And their ideas you'll see featured in a lot of our workshops and programming. So students also work on projects throughout the semester. So they're sort of serving as an advisory board, but they also work on their own individual projects that combine education research, a bit of advocacy, a bit of journalism. And these topics they choose based on their interests, based on what they see as a campus need. So in total, so far, 8 different student partners. They've created 14 multimedia resources. So included in that is a template syllabus for STEM instructors to increase inclusivity in STEM classes, a podcast on the first-gen low-income and rural student experience, a practical guide to supporting students during Ramadan, and many others. So every project is unique, it's very personal, it's very powerful. It includes the voice of the student partner who created it, but also other students and sometimes even faculty and staff. So in those podcasts, you can really hear the voices of students and their peers. And they've noted that creating something like this is an opportunity most students never get. Through their project, they're able to make deeper connections with professors. They feel very validated with this work. So I really strongly encourage you all to review what these students have created if you haven't already seen it. These projects certainly have a life-changing impact on them, but are really meant to impact the campus more broadly for all who read and apply their lessons. So this program, we use the term co-creation. It really embodies it. We make decisions together, and this program is much theirs as it is mine. So the design and development of it has changed over time, and they throw in new ideas. Like this picture in the bottom left, that was Nate's idea one day. We're like talking about how are students feeling around midterms? Like, well, it's a nice day, let's just go outside and ask them. So we were gathering student insights on the quad to then bring back to some of our programming. But I'd like to highlight one student partner, Reba, who is kind of in the middle of that top picture. She has fully embraced this idea of co-creation. So Reba's focus has consistently been on understanding and appreciating the faculty and staff perspective, building bridges between students, faculty, staff, and administrators. She's been there from the start and has always been a partner to me in this work. And over the last 3 semesters, she's developed into a mentor for the new student partners. She's sat in on a number of CTRL events, including like the AI coffee chats and other workshops, our recent Course Design Institute, syllabus retreat. And she's even developed plans to expand the program to offer consultations and class visits to faculty. So watching her take the lead on consulting with faculty and moderating a panel of her peers last spring, that's been really inspiring. And I joke about how she could have done a better job presenting about this program today than I could. She's excellent. So what I hope to communicate through standing on this panel today is the importance and value of partnering with students and embracing that idea of co-creation as a larger institutional value seen across our schools, across our departments and offices, beyond just this program. So the program produces a lot of great resources, but we also hope to be an inspiration for others. So we see it as a reciprocal process that requires mutual trust, respect, accountability. Reba, in something that we're writing, is just recently posited 4 C's of partnership. So she wrote community, a place where people can be themselves; collaboration, where there's feedback, support, and we build off of each other; cognizance, where there's awareness and validation and reflection; and commitment. So I hope you all keep these principles in mind throughout this summit, throughout this academic year, as we thrive together, as the president said this morning.
Thank you so much, Hannah. I love the elevation of student voices, and we can't be a student-centered institution without bringing in those student experiences and voices, so I love that. Go ahead, Amelia, finish off our panel.
So, hi everybody, I'm Amelia. I advise SPA sophomores through seniors with last names B through F. They are stuck with me for 3 school years. And if you work with any of those students, you are also stuck with me, so I'm sorry about that. But it's really nice to see some familiar faces. A lot of my work with students is one-on-one. That's what advising is about. So I actually am just gonna talk to you today about one of my students. And I'm talking to you about my student, Tyler. Last fall, he was among 6 DC area college students interviewed by the Washington News Bureau about the Supreme Court strike down of affirmative action in college admissions. So along with the video link, this is the email Tyler sent me shortly after his interview, and I do have his permission to read this. So he wrote, "Good evening, Amelia. As my advisor, I honestly believe I should let you know about this opportunity I had. Last week, I did an interview with Gray TV on affirmative action, and I wanted to send it to you. I was sweaty and nervous." So a little bit more about Tyler. He's a rising senior. We first met when he was a sophomore. And we talked a lot about this, I think, this morning in the keynote. And we all know undergrads have been facing more challenges than ever before. The pandemic, the mental health crisis, which we really talked about, sociopolitical turmoil, and just like an overall uncertain future, among many other things, right? So so many of our AU Eagles, they are facing that future head on. We get to watch that all the time. But I have been able to watch Tyler especially jump over all these hurdles with thoughtfulness, intentionality, and like true ingenuity, I think. So A little bit more about him. Besides his major, he's pursuing a double minor. He's been a leader in 5 campus orgs, and he's completed a 15-week Hilternship this past semester. But even beyond that, I personally think his greatest student successes have been his really steadfast belief in the power of community and his passion for change making. So in this interview, which I'm not playing for you, but just spoiler alert, he reminds the viewers of the power of their vote, which trickles upward to the selection of our Supreme Court justices, the people that make major decisions about, among many other things, the shape of our campus communities. So also in the interview, he calls on higher education to really double down on intentionally increasing accessibility to a college degree, implementing DEIB-focused initiatives on campus, and then also supporting historically marginalized student populations. So one more quick story about Tyler. In a past semester, I had multiple students, multiple advisees, facing the same difficult classroom situation. I really was so disheartened by this situation. I wanted to jump in and fix it. But then Tyler came to me, and he wasn't seeking an advocate or advice. He just wanted to tell me his approach of kind of what he'd done about this. So he'd actually emailed the professor. He requested a private one-on-one with her, and he wanted to share his personal perspective on what had happened in class recently. And he not only did that, he also took it upon himself to gather his classmates' perspectives to share with the faculty member. Most impressively to me, though, he really wanted to hear the side of her story, too, her side of the story, pardon, and work with her, not against her, work with her to better their classroom community. So to me, that was really a demonstration of true leadership. So in summary, Tyler, he leads with empathy, grace, and humility. I've watched him also work tirelessly to overcome feelings of imposter syndrome and self-doubt. It's been an immense privilege to watch him find value in his story and his voice. He's been on TV now, which is just so cool. And so kind of like a running joke we have when you work in SPA, you sometimes wonder whose name you're gonna see on a ballot someday. And I truly hope I see Tyler's. So he really exemplifies everything that an educator could hope for in a student and a young person who's stepping out into our ever-changing and dynamic world.
Thank you so much. I love those individual meetings with students, which are much more along what I do every day. So I love the transformation and the growth and development you can see over time by building and investing in those relationships and walking them through challenges. We're going to switch a little bit to offering questions for the panel. We probably just have time for a couple of you to chime in on each one of these. And then we'll open up for the audience, both here and on Zoom, to ask questions as well. So first question, panel members. We know building strong engagement, mentorship, connections with students, those relationships President Alger talked about, lead to students persisting higher retention rates. What are some strategies that you found to be effective in building those initial relationships with students?
I think the language we use when we talk to and with students is really important. So I'm very careful to use language like we, us, together with, not using students. I think we often say, oh, we'll use them for this or we'll use them for that, and meaning bringing them in, but careful to not use that word using or even giving them space as if they didn't already have it, insinuating they are powerless, but the power is already there, so creating together, building together, establishing, and with that comes this idea of agency and authority that I think the student partners really talk a lot about how they value that agency and authority and that trust that comes from using that language.
Yeah, I actually have something similar was language related that I always think about. So when I was younger, I often was asking students, do you have any questions, or give me a thumbs up, do you understand? And the past couple of years, I've turned that into what questions do you have? Because they're way more likely to ask you a question if they feel like they're not bothering you or taking up space in their time, or maybe looking left and right to see like, oh, nobody else has questions or nobody else has their thumbs down for understanding. I feel confident to ask the question. So I think what Hannah's saying about language is really huge.
I love that. I hear both of those, giving ownership to the student and also normalizing question asking. That's great. Anyone else before we move to the next one?
Being respectful in your communication with students. I thank my students every time they come in to see me. I thank them when they send me an email. I thank them when they send me a bad resume that needs review. It sets a very good example that it's courtesy, it's good communication, there's respect there. It presents a more welcoming environment to work with students, especially in career advising. We are a voluntary appointment. There are no mandatory appointments for coming in to see career advising. And so that's quite illuminating when you think about it. We have to create a welcoming environment for students to want to do so.
Okay, second question. In your professional and personal experience, what are some of the most common challenges our students are facing when it comes to their success at AU? And I'd love for those that are on Zoom, feel free, I know we have student-facing staff and faculty members that are joining us online, feel free to drop your thoughts in the chat. And then for people in the audience, if you hear someone up here mention a challenge that you think applies or you've really experienced, feel free to raise your hand just so that we can all see that we're experiencing those common challenges together.
So I guess 3 quick ones. I asked my students just yesterday, and this kind of came from them. One was that with social entrepreneurship, just like with any entrepreneurship, there's risk. And oftentimes, it's like I'm thinking about my experience, first generation, going into this field of public service. I think that there was a lot of people saying no, or that's not a wise move, or it's not worth pursuing, or the idea is too big for you to execute. And I think that the more times that they're able to be told yes, and here's what you can do, or here's who you can go to for support, that makes all the difference. Sometimes just that, permission, even if they have been told maybe this isn't your space. Also, the financial burden. I think when engaging within nonprofit work, I think that's one of those things we actually don't have, funding for students to be able to do this. So we have to hope that nonprofits are able to pay or find other ways for them to get compensation. And then lastly, just around the stigma of service learning. Some people think it's just service plus learning, so there's nothing additive there. But truly, it's service times learning. Every time you learn something, you can practice it through a service experience.
Other challenges?
The student partners talk a lot about what you said, time and money, but also this idea of being misunderstood or stereotyped, or that there are common assumptions about who an AU student is and what their background is or what their experience has been. They're coming into your classes with certain either life experience or academic experience, and that's what a lot of their projects ended up being about, is pushing back against some of those assumptions or the myth of the typical AU student, I guess. So the solution to that, I guess, would just be more awareness and more asking your students who they are, and those types of, if you're a faculty member, beginning of semester surveys that get a sense of where your students are coming from and what they're coming in with.
I've also seen students challenged in how to navigate AU, particularly first generation or underrepresented populations. And I've seen a fair amount of challenge. A high proportion of my students are military connected, so mental health challenges is definitely a big part of their experiences they're going throughout their grad program. Any other challenges before we move on? I know that leadership sees your time with students as a precious and valuable resource. What other resources, tools, investment and support do you or your colleagues need in order to scale the kind of work that you've done, overcome challenges, or achieve what you have with the students you've been working with?
I was waiting for this question. So I always say that to do something innovative in academia is really hard. And I think, everybody here is doing super interesting and innovative programs and should all be commended. But, we work in an institution where there are rules, and that can be a little bit difficult to navigate. I'm lucky in the School of Communication, Anna Maria, who's over there, when SOC3 came out, she was like one of the biggest champions, because I had to quickly, get the course number, get the course listed, get students, have the application, all of that stuff. That requires people to believe in you. So I think that's number one, is just having that faith. And I'm lucky that in the School of Communication, there are people that do believe in that. But given that we are also in a very, difficult budget situation, all of us want to scale our work, right? We all want to get bigger. I want it to succeed for the long term. And to do that, you have to keep investing. And so I think that is a challenge. The university can cheer and say, yay, right? But they have to continue to support, and by support, I mean financially support things that are giving back, right? I mean, Saagar wants the students to be paid so they can continue to make an impact on the community. That's one of the strategic imperatives, so it should be supported. And if the university doesn't have those resources, it's definitely a story that alums and leaders in Washington want to hear, and they want to invest in the next generation. We just have to be really intentional about telling that story and getting that support.
Yeah, even when it comes to our Eagle Endowment Program, which gives grants of up to 1,002 students, that actually came from students after 9/11. They raised $100,000. We've been using investment income that's come off of that endowment to fund projects for over 20 years. And when we look at, we're in Division of Student Affairs, so our programs need to be able to be accessible for all, undergrads and grads. And when we calculate it, even if it was just for undergrads, our budget is less than $4 a student for a year's worth of programming. So that financial burden is definitely one. On top of it, I think it's the ability to scale and invest in our staff as well. It's 1 full-time staff and 4 really dedicated part-time student staff who are running all 4 of these programs on their own. It's also only during the academic year. So that summer where we have to really plan, scale, make partnerships, it's difficult to do all of that only really around the academic year when students are also then trying to manage their own course load. So when we're thinking about what are some of those high-value partnerships that we can make, whether it's across faculty to teach more CB courses, across nonprofits so that students can have more personalized experiences, or around students to represent their stories, it's an issue of scaling, needing more, really somebody to come in and lift our voices up, because so often we're just trying to cater to the students themselves.
To also add that Christy over there, Workday almost killed me. And again, having staff that can, if you're a faculty member, you're not necessarily, exposed to some of these inner workings like Workday and MicroStrategy, and I don't play in that world. I know that's your guys' world. But having that staff and faculty sort of support is also really important, because for me, I went to HR and cried. I'm not even joking, because that's how frustrating it was to get the students paid. And so again, having, I think, a little bit more investment there. I'm lucky that I had Christy, but not everybody has Christy. So I think, really thinking about the fact that AU has so many systems that not everybody knows. And, it helps to have a little bit more support there.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in from my perspective as an academic advisor. The ability to efficiently personalize communication content to students, there's not the infrastructure technologically to do that. The personalization comes from things that I'm doing with my time, and I know it's not the most efficient, but it's the way that things are right now. So I think investing in that would really help across all student-facing communications to be able to do more personalized communication to students, which they're used to now in every other sector of their life. So final question, in the spirit of making sure your oxygen mask is on before helping others, knowing you're in a helping role, how do you build sustainable practices? How do you reinvigorate, remotivate yourself, knowing we're going into a busy academic year?
I actually really liked what Pallavi said before, where it's what you see what you get to put out into the world within a program like this. And so right before the start of every academic semester, I get to look back at the evaluations, read over the reflections, and then really just take stock of some of what the students have done. Like last time, for example, they did this, one of a public health capstone. They looked at 5 major insurance companies and looked at how somebody with AIDS would get treatment through their insurance programs, and just seeing the work and then being able to see the quantifiable impact of work that students are doing, and knowing that that's like chronologically speaking, going to expand from way longer than they're at AU, and just that impact is going to carry forward. It's really inspiring.
Power of positive thinking. There are those of us out here who might say, oh, students are coming back in 2 weeks, groan. And there are those of us who say, students are coming back in 2 weeks, I'm excited. So it really is a perspective. Are you enjoying student interaction, or are you looking at them as, oh goodness, they got in the way of my summer break? So really thinking positive about our student interactions, our time with them, and the support we give them.
My answer is pace yourself. I always joke that I came to academics for work-life balance, and I don't have any. But so for me, pacing myself means like, you know, just making sure that on the downtime when I'm not answering the email or teaching or, you know, running SOC3, that I'm enjoying life. Because then I think then you can't just have everything compressed into 9 months, right? Like you have to be able to pace yourself. So I'm trying to get better. I'm not very good at it, but every year I try.
So I like to model and integrate the things that bring me joy into my time with students as well. So even now I'm thinking about, okay, if the weather is as nice as it is now, we'll have our first meetings next week, no, in 2 weeks, outside, and we'll just spend time in nature with friends and stay away from our work and our screens and just talk to each other, maybe bring some snacks. So in the same way I would hang out with my family and friends, I bring that to some of my meetings with my students.
Something I do is actually tell myself what I tell students all the time, and it's you feel what you feel and your feelings are real. So if you can, also something I tell students, find like one trusted person, one trusted adult on campus, and remember that you are not alone in this. Don't bottle things up. Please say what's on your mind, and please ask for help, because that's what they pay all of us for. So I think I really find that in my office, especially from my supervisor, my department head, and then my peer colleagues, is just telling them what's on my mind, and it makes the battle a lot easier because I know I have people with me.
Okay, we have just a few minutes to take a few questions, either from people here or those on Zoom, if someone wants to speak one of those out.